The background of our study has been to do an adjusted comparison of the CARTITUDE-1 outcomes versus real-world clinical practice observed from the prospective LocoMMotion study. And cilta-cel is a BCMA CAR-T evaluated in the CARTITUDE-1 clinical study. This study showed how cilta-cel was very effective in relapsed and refractory myeloma patients, triple drug class exposed, and basically majority of the patients were triple drug class refractory. But this patient was just a single arm study, and this means that there was not any standard of care in order to compare the results of the CARTITUDE-1 clinical study. This was the rationale why the LocoMMotion study was conducted, and the LocoMMotion has been the first prospective observational study based on the evaluation of the different regimes utilized in the real life for the rescue of the triple drug class refractory myeloma patients. So this means that the LocoMMotion study would represent the comparator arm for the CARTITUDE-1 clinical study in which cilta-cel was evaluated. And basically this was the rationale for this comparison, and indeed the key baseline characteristics of the patients included in both clinical studies were quite comparable. And in principle, myeloma patients that had received at least 3 prior therapies or were double refractory to immunomodulatory drug and proteasome inhibitor and had received an IMiD, PI, and anti-CD38 monoclonal antibodies were the key eligibility criteria in both studies. And this was the main reason why the comparison is possible. The first important finding is to remark that CARTITUDE-1 evaluated the cilta-cel single agent. And in the LocoMMotion study, when the rescue therapies were evaluated in the triple drug class refractory myeloma patient, it is important to note that 92 unique regimes were used as rescue therapy in the real world setting. This means that there is not any standard of care for these patients triple drug class refractory. And when the comparison was done from the efficacy point of view in terms of overall response rate, patients treated with cilta-cel were 3 times as likely to achieve a response and more than 5 times as likely to have a better than a very good partial response than those treated with conventional therapies. But most remarkable, 83% of the patients treated with cilta-cel achieved at least a complete response, compared with just 1 patient in the LocoMMotion that achieved complete response. And following with the overall response rate when the progression-free survival as well as the overall survival was evaluated, a significant benefit has been reported for cilta-cel versus LocoMMotion study. And when cilta-cel was evaluated and was utilized in relapsed and refractory myeloma patients, the probability of reduction of progression and/or death was by 85% in comparison with the population included in the LocoMMotion. And in terms of overall survival, the risk of death was reduced by 80% in the cilta-cel in comparison with the LocoMMotion. So this means that definitely there is a clear benefit in terms of efficacy for cilta-cel versus standard of care in the real world setting evaluated in the LocoMMotion study. But also I would like to remark the fact that the quality of life was also evaluated because of the prospective nature of the LocoMMotion study. And when this comparison was done, overall the quality of life was also significantly better for cilta-cel versus LocoMMotion study. This study showed clearly how patients treated with the cilta-cel in the CARTITUDE-1 achieved the highest overall response rate, complete response rate, and the longest progression-free survival seen in this patient population, patients basically triple drug class refractory. The indirect comparison with the population included in the LocoMMotion demonstrates that the cilta-cel provides a clinically and statistically significant improvement in outcomes, including response, PFS, overall survival, but also quality of life. And definitely all these data provide the highest quality real-world comparative evidence for cilta-cel and highlights its potential as a highly effective treatment options for patients with triple class exposed relapsed and refractory multiple myeloma. Definitely this type of comparison are appropriate because of the innovative nature of the BCMA CAR T therapy like cilta-cel. This type of comparison are necessary because we had the opportunity to see how in the LocoMMotion there is not any standard of care for this population. So cilta-cel, in this case, the BCMA CAR T, is going to cover the unmet medical need we have in this triple drug class refractory myeloma patient.